an anti-philosopher, a cynic.
A thinker, an iconoclast.
He's sometimes thought of as an anti-guru.
A very interesting and complicated man.
Some have even called him a fraud.
There's a lot I really like about U.G. Krishnamurti, and there are times when I don't know what the hell he's talking about. The excerpts provided below, and in 2 later chapters, represent the overlap between his views and mine. I may have taken some of it a little out of context, but the point here is to try to convey tricky and often paradoxical ideas, as well as to hold up the state of the realized being for observation. And I think these selections do that. For the sincere seeker, to be challenged is to be entertained. They are 2 sides of the same coin, and whatever else he may be, U.G. Krishnamurti is challenging and entertaining. People call me an enlightened man. I detest that term. They can't find any other word to describe the way I am functioning. At the same time, I point out that there is no such thing as enlightenment at all. I say that because all my life I've searched and wanted to be an enlightened man, and I discovered that there is no such thing as enlightenment at all. And so the question whether a particular person is enlightened or not doesn't arise. I don't give a hoot for 6th century B.C. Buddha, let alone all the other claimants we have in our midst. They are a bunch of exploiters thriving on the gullibility of the people. There is no power outside of man. Man has created God out of fear. So the problem is fear and not God. I discovered for myself and by myself that there is no self to realize. That's the realization I am talking about. It comes as a shattering blow. It hits you like a thunderbolt. You have invested everything in one basket, self-realization, and in the end, suddenly you discover that there is no self to discover, no self to realize. And you say to yourself, "What the hell have I been doing all my life?" That blasts you. We don't want to be free from fear. All that we want to do is to play games with it and talk about freeing ourselves from fear. Your constant utilization of thought to give continuity to your separate self is you. There is nothing there inside you other than that. You see, the search takes you away from yourself. It is in the opposite direction. It has absolutely no relation. The search is always in the wrong direction. So all that you consider very profound, all that you consider sacred, is a contamination in that consciousness. You may not like the word contamination, but all that you consider sacred, holy, and profound is a contamination. My life story goes up to a point, and then it stops. There is no more biography after that. Desirelessness, non-greed, non-anger, those things have no meaning to me. They are false. And they are not only false, they are falsifying me. I'm finished with the whole business. The holy men are all phonies. They are telling me only what is there in the books. That I can read. Do the same again and again. That I don't want. Experiences I don't want. They are trying to share an experience with me. I am not interested in experience. As far as experience goes, for me there is no difference between the religious experience and the sex experience, or any other experience. The religious experience is like any other experience. I am not interested in experiencing Brahman. I am not interested in experiencing reality. I am not interested in experiencing truth. They might help others, but they cannot help me. I am not interested in doing more of the same. What I have done is enough. Who am I to give it to you? You have what I have. We are all at 25 Sanity Street. And you are asking me, where is 25 Sanity Street? I say, you are there. Not that I know I am there. The abstractions that you are throwing at me, I am not interested in. Is there anything behind the abstractions? I had arrived at a point where I said to myself, Buddha deluded himself and deluded others. All those teachers and saviors of mankind were damned fools. They fooled themselves. So I'm not interested in this kind of thing anymore. So it went out of my system completely. I am not trying to sell anything here. It is impossible for you to simulate this. This is a thing that has happened outside the field, the area in which I expected, dreamed, and wanted change. So I don't call this a change. I really don't know what has happened to me. What I am telling you is the way I am functioning. There seems to be some difference between the way you are functioning and the way I am functioning. But basically, there can't be any difference. How can there be any difference between you and me? There can't be. But from the way we are trying to express ourselves, there seems to be. I have the feeling that there is some difference, and what that difference is all that I am trying to understand. So, this is the way I am functioning. You see, my difficulty with the people who come to see me is this. They don't seem to be able to understand the way I am functioning, and I don't seem to be able to understand the way they are functioning. How can we carry on a dialogue? Both of us have to stop. How can there be a dialogue between us both? Your natural state has no relationship whatsoever with the religious states of bliss, beatitude, and ecstasy. They lie within the field of experience. Those who have led man on his search for religiousness throughout the centuries have perhaps experienced those religious states. So can you. They are thought-induced states of being, and as they come, so do they go. Krishna consciousness, Buddha consciousness, Christ consciousness, or what have you, are all trips in the wrong direction. They are all within the field of time. The timelessness can never be experienced, can never be grasped, contained, much less given expression to by any man. That beaten track will lead you nowhere. There is no oasis situated yonder. You are stuck with the mirage. You see, people usually imagine that so-called enlightenment, self-realization, God-realization, or what you will, I don't like to use these words, is something ecstatic, that you will be permanently happy in a blissful state all the time. These are the images they have of those people. There's no relationship at all between the image you have of that and what actually is the situation. That's why I very often tell people, if I could give you some glimpse of what this is all about, you wouldn't touch this with a barge pole, a 10-foot pole. You would run away from this because this is not what you want. What you want does not exist, you see. If somebody asks me a question suddenly, I try to answer, emphasizing and pointing out that there is no answer to that question. So I merely rephrase, restructure, and throw the same question back at you. It's not game playing, because I'm not interested in winning you over to my point of view. It's not a question of offering opinions. Of course, I do have my opinions on everything from disease to divinity. but they're as worthless as anybody else's. Put it simply, I can't follow a very complex structure. I have that difficulty, you see. Probably I'm a low-grade moron or something. I don't know. I can't follow conceptual thinking. You can put it in very simple words. What exactly is the question? Because the answer is there. I don't have to give the answer. What I usually do is restructure the question, rephrase it in such a way that the question appears senseless to you. Understanding is a state of being where the question isn't there anymore. There is nothing there that says, "Now I understand." That's the basic difficulty between us. By understanding what I am saying, you are not going to get anywhere. It is the questioner that creates the answer, and the questioner comes into being from the answer. Otherwise, there is no questioner. I am not trying to play with words. You know the answer, and you want a confirmation from me, or you want some kind of light to be thrown on your problem, or you're curious. If for any of these reasons you want to carry on a dialogue with me, you're just wasting your time. You'll have to go to a scholar, a pundit, a learned man. They can throw a lot of light on such questions. That's all that I am interested in this kind of dialogue, to help you formulate your own question. Try and formulate a question which you can call your own.
I was surrounded by the holy men all through my life, especially in the formative years. The be-all and end-all of our existence was to attain enlightenment.
I was hungering, wanting to find out for myself and by myself, is there any such thing as enlightenment? I looked everywhere, did everything that I was asked by my teachers, followed everything, you see, that is there in the book, practiced every kind of meditation and got nowhere.
Chapter 22. Has anybody told the truth? The words of U.G. Krishnamurti, Part 2. There is no religious content, no mystical overtones at all in what I am saying. Man has to be saved from the saviors of mankind. The religious people, they kidded themselves and fooled the whole of mankind. Throw them out. U.G. Krishnamurti. Further observations from U.G. Krishnamurti, the Un-Guru. This consciousness which is functioning in me, in you, in the garden slug and earthworm outside, is the same. In me it has no frontiers. In you there are frontiers. You are enclosed in that. Probably this unlimited consciousness pushes you. I don't know. Not me. I have nothing to do with it. It is like the water finding its own level. That's all. That is its nature. That is what is happening in you. Life is trying to destroy the enclosing thing, that dead structure of thought and experience, which is not of its nature. It's trying to come out, to break open. You don't want that. As soon as you see some cracks there, you bring some plaster and fill them in and block it again. It doesn't have to be a so-called self-realized man or spiritual man or God-realized man that pushes you. Anything, that leaf there, teaches you just the same if only you let it do what it can. There is only the one thought, how? The one question that this organism is interested in is how to throw off the whole thraldom, the whole strangling influence of culture. That question is the only question this organism has, not as a word, not as a thought. The whole human organism is that one question. I don't know whether I make myself clear. That is the one question, you see, which is throbbing, pulsating in every cell, in the very marrow of your bones, trying to free itself from this stranglehold. That is the one question, the one thought. That is the Savior. That question finds that it has no way of finding an answer, that it is impossible for that question to do anything. So it explodes. When it has no way to move, no space, the explosion takes place. That explosion is like a nuclear explosion. That breaks the continuity of thought. Questioning my actions before and after is over for me. The moral question, I should have acted this way. I should not have acted that way. I should not have said this. None of that is there for me. I have no regrets, no apologies. Whatever I am doing is automatic. In a given situation, I am not capable of acting in any other way. I don't have to rationalize, think logically. Nothing. That is the one and only action in that particular situation. By conserving sex energy, you are not going to improve yourself in any way. It is too silly and too absurd. Why have they laid so much stress on that? Abstinence, continence, celibacy is not going to help put you in this state, in this situation. We have very strange ideas in the religious field. Torture this body, sleep on nails, control, deny things, all kinds of funny things. What for? Why deny certain things? I don't know. What is the difference between a man going to a bar for a glass of beer and a man going to a temple and repeating the name of Rama? I don't see any basic difference. I am not against escapes, but whether you escape through this avenue or that avenue, an escape is an escape. You are escaping from yourself. What you do or do not do does not matter at all. Your practice of holiness, your practice of virtue, that is socially valuable for the society, but that has nothing to do with this. Why, I sometimes go to the limit of saying that it is possible for a rapist, for a murderer, for a thief, for a convict, for a con man. This kind of thing can happen. That has nothing to do with it. The moral codes of conduct have no relationship whatsoever to this. You don't know what is good. You know only what is good for you. That's all you're interested in. That's a fact. Everything centers around that. All your art and reason centers around that. I am not being cynical. That's a fact. Nothing wrong with it. I'm not saying anything against it. The situations change, but it is that which is guiding you through all situations. I'm not saying it is wrong, you see. If it is not so, something must be wrong with you. As long as you are operating in the field of what they call the pair of opposites, good and bad, you will always be choosy in every situation. That is all. You cannot help doing that. A moral man is a chicken. A moral man is a frightened man, a chicken-hearted man. That is why he practices morality and sits in judgment over others. And his righteous indignation. A moral man, if there is one, will never, never talk of morality or sit in judgment on the morals of others. Never. You hope that you will be able to resolve the problem of desire through thinking, because of that model of a saint who you think has controlled or eliminated desire. If that man has no desire, as you imagine, he is a corpse. don't believe that man at all. Such a man builds some organization and lives in luxury, which you pay for. You are maintaining him. He is doing it for his livelihood. There is always a fool in the world who falls for him. You are asking me, has anything any purpose? Look here. A lot of meanings and purposes have been given to you. Why are you still looking for the meaning of life, the purpose of life? Everybody has talked of the meaning of life and the purpose of life. Everybody. Answers have been given by the saviors, saints, and sages of mankind. You have thousands of them in India. And yet, today, you are still asking the same question. Has life any purpose or meaning? Either you are not satisfied, or you are not really interested in finding out for yourself. I submit that you are not really interested, because it's a frightening thing. It's a very frightening thing. Is there any such thing as truth? Have you ever asked that question for yourself? Has anybody told the truth? Questioner. There are so many truths. They are all liars, fops, fakes, and cheaters in the world who claim that they have searched for and told the truth. All right. You want to find out for yourself what the truth is? Can you find out? Can you capture the truth and hold it and say, this is the truth? Whether you accept or reject, it's the same. It depends on your personal prejudices and predilections. So if you want to discover the truth for yourself, whatever it is, you are not in a position to either accept or reject. You assume that there is such a thing as truth. You assume that there is such a thing as reality, ultimate or otherwise. It is that assumption that is creating the problem, the suffering for you. Look here. I want to experience God, truth, reality, or what you will. So I must understand the nature of the experiencing structure inside of me before I deal with all that. I must look at the instrument I am using. You are trying to capture something that cannot be captured in terms of your experiencing structure. So this experiencing structure must not be there in order that the other thing may come in. What that is, you will never know. You will never know the truth, because it's a movement. It's a movement. You cannot capture it. You cannot contain it. You cannot express it. It's not a logically ascertained premise that we are interested in. So, it has to be your discovery. What good is my experience? We have thousands and thousands of experiences recorded. They haven't helped you. It's the hope that keeps you going. If I follow this for another 10 years, 15 years, maybe one of these days I will, because hope is the structure. Questioner. So he spends a lifetime and finally discovers that he's discovered nothing. Nothing. That's the discovery. So-called self-realization is the discovery for yourself and by yourself that there is no self to discover. That will be a very shocking thing. Why the hell have I wasted all my life? It's a shocking thing because it's going to destroy every nerve, every cell, even the cells in the marrow of your bones. I tell you, it's not going to be an easy thing. It's not going to be handed over to you on a gold platter. You have to become completely disillusioned. Then the truth begins to express itself in its own way. I have discovered that it is useless to try to discover the truth. The search for truth is, I have discovered, absurd, because it's a thing which you cannot capture, contain, or give expression to. What separates you, what isolates you, is your thought. It creates the frontiers. It creates the boundaries. And once the boundaries are not there, it is boundless, limitless. In a way, the whole of life is like a great big dream. I am looking at you, but I really don't know anything about you. This is a dream world. There is no reality to it at all. When the experiencing structure is not manipulating consciousness, or whatever you want to call it, then the whole of life is a great big dream, from the experiential point of view. Not from this point of view here, but from your point of view. You see, you give reality to things, not only to objects, but also to feelings and experiences, and think that they are real. When you don't translate them in terms of your accumulated knowledge, they are not things. You really don't know what they are. Look here. There is no present to the structure of the you. All that is there is the past, which is trying to project itself into the future. You can think about past, present, and future, but there is no future. There is no present. There is only the past. Your future is only a projection of the past. If there is a present, that present can never be experienced by you, because you experience only your knowledge about the present, and that knowledge is the past. So what is the point in trying to experience that moment which you call now? The now can never be experienced by you. Whatever you experience is not the now. So the now is a thing which can never become part of your conscious existence, and which you cannot give expression to. The now does not exist, as far as you are concerned, except as a concept. I don't talk about the now. Courage is to brush aside everything that man has experienced and felt before you. You are the only one, greater than all those things. Everything is finished. The whole tradition is finished, however sacred and holy it may be. Then only can you be yourself. That is individuality. For the first time, you become an individual. As long as you depend upon somebody, some authority, you are not an individual. Individual uniqueness cannot express itself as long as there is dependence. I am always negating what I am saying. I make a statement, but that statement is not expressing all that is being said, so I negate it. You say I am contradicting myself. I am not contradictory at all. I negate the first statement, the second statement, and all the other statements. That is why sometimes it sounds very contradictory. I am negating it all the time, not with the idea of arriving at any point, just negating. There is no purpose in my talking.
I'd like to go back to that time, I think it was in 1967, just after your 49th birthday, and an experience occurred. Could you describe that?
Somehow it hit me one day like a lightning or an earthquake that there is no such thing as enlightenment at all.
The third and final selection of excerpts from U.G. Krishnamurti. If anyone makes you believe you can get somewhere, he's taking you for a ride. He may be honest. Distrust all honest fellows. Throw them out. There is no one who is honest in this field. No outside agency can help you. I wish you the best of luck. I know very well that it is not something that you or anybody else can get or that anybody can give. I can't give it. If there is somebody who promises, he is just promising, and he is going to take you for a long ride. He is just kidding you. He cannot deliver the goods, so he says, next life, or 10 years hence. He is safe. You can't be interested in this. How can you be interested in this? That is my question. How can you be interested in this kind of a thing? What you are interested in is a totally different thing. Fancy stuff. Fantasy. You may indulge in all kinds of fantasy. That's your affair. If this is not fantasy, you will be interested in some other kind of fantasy. How can you be interested in liquidating yourself? That is my question. All that you as you know yourself, you as you experience yourself, is interested in continuity. It knows all the tricks. You cannot beat that. I am not interested in the whole field of self-expression, getting in touch with one's feelings, overcoming inhibitions, and so on. I respond to what people come to see me about, the natural state. If people are interested in psychological change, so-called consciousness expansion and all that, let them go to encounter groups or see psychiatrists and engage in what I call the Freudian fraud. In the end, their so-called growth will not bring them happiness, and neither will their improved sex lives, if their sex lives improve. At best, they will simply have learned to be unhappy in a new and richer way. Everything is okay with me. If you have $1 million and 8 girlfriends, that's okay with me. If you are lonely and disagreeable and penniless and dying of cancer, that also is okay with me. I am perfectly happy with everything as it is. I am happy with misery, poverty, and death. I am also happy with wealth and psychological fulfillment. Asked about Buddha and Christ. Why do you bother about those fellows? They are dead. You should pitch them in the river. And yet you don't. You keep listening to someone, it makes no difference whom, and you keep hoping that somehow, tomorrow or the next day, by listening more and more, you will get off the merry-go-round. You listen to your parents and to your teachers at school, and they tell you to be good and dutiful and not be angry, and so on, and that doesn't do any good. And so you go and learn how to do yoga. And then presently some old chap comes along and tells you to be choicelessly aware. Or maybe you find someone in the holy business, and he does miracles. He produces some trinkets out of the air, and you fall for it. Or perhaps he touches you, and you see some blue light, or green light, or yellow light, or God knows what, and you hope he will help you experience enlightenment. But he cannot help you. It is not something that can be captured, contained, or given expression to. I do not know if you see the utter helplessness of the situation, and how, if anyone thinks he can help you, he will inevitably mislead you. And the less phony he is, the more powerful he is. The more enlightened he is, the more misery and mischief he will create for you. But you are waiting for something to happen, or for some grace to descend upon you. You are still depending upon some outside agency. I can tell you that there is no power outside of you. No power. This does not mean that you have all the attributes that you read about of the super-duper gods, but there is no power outside of you. If there is any power in this universe, it is in you. There is no self to be realized. The whole religious structure that has been built on this foundation collapses because there is nothing there to realize. To me, J. Krishnamurti, here U.G. refers to Jiddu Krishnamurti, an acquaintance, not a relation. is playing exactly the same game as all those ugly saints in the market whom we have in the world today. Krishnamurti's teaching is phony baloney. There is nothing to his teaching at all, and he cannot produce anything at all. A person may listen to him for 60, 70, or 100 years, but nothing will ever happen to that man, because the whole thing is phony. Here's a mere wordsmith. He has created a new trap. These gurus are the worst egotists the world has ever seen. All gurus are welfare organizations providing petty experiences to their followers. The guru game is a profitable industry. Try and make $2 million a year any other way. Even J. Krishnamurti, who claims he has no possessions, is the president of an $80 million empire. What prevents you from understanding what you want to understand is the very thing which you are using to understand things. This is not my teaching or anybody's teaching, but this is the only thing. You are trying to understand something through an instrument which is not the instrument to understand. Questioner: Yes, but if there is no yes, but. You can't say yes and begin the next sentence with but. There is no but there. If the yes is a real yes, that releases the thing there. The yes fades into nothingness, and then what is there begins to express itself. If you say but, you are giving continuity to that dead structure of thought, experience, and hope. Yes is the thing that blows the whole structure apart. As long as you follow somebody else's path, the path is the product of thought, so it is actually not a new path. It's the same old path, and you are playing the same old game in a new way. It is not a new game. It is the same old game that you are playing all the time. But you think you are playing a new game. When you see the absurdity of what you're doing, maybe you'll realize, what the hell have I been doing for 30 years, 40 years, 50 years? One thing I must say. This is not born out of thinking. This is not a logically ascertained premise that I am putting forth. These are just words springing up from their natural source without any thought structure. So take it or leave it. You will be better off if you leave it. Your teacher must go. It doesn't matter who the teacher is. The very thing that you are reading, that's the very thing you must be free from. Questioner: Sir, what is your message? It is quite simple. You are not going to get anything here. You are wasting your time. Pack up and go. That is my message. I have nothing to give. You have nothing to take. If you continue to sit there, you are wasting your time. The one thing you have to do is get up and go.
But really, it's just different ways of pointing out, pointing towards the truth of you. And even though we can't even think, let me put it this way, it's darn near impossible for anybody to think about themselves in any other terms than a self. All the ways you're taught to think about yourself is in terms of some variety of self, some form of self. And it's so conditioned into the mind, into the structure of the mind, to think about you in terms of a self. Try to think about yourself in some other terms other than a self. you can't, you just stop. It stops your mind. Because, see, it's only a thought that's convinced anybody that they are a self at all. Maybe you're something entirely different than a self. Small self, unlimited self, transcendent self. Way before I understood this, had my own recognition of it, I remember reading these wonderful lines by U.G. Krishnamurti, not to be confused with the more popular Krishnamurti. When U.G. said, well, it's going to really come as a shock to you one day when you spend all these years looking for yourself and one day you find out there isn't one. That's going to be a shock to your system. That's going to be a nuclear explosion. Yeah. And he sure as heck ended up being right.
Assuming for a moment that there is an enlightened being,
Yes.
he has no way of telling himself that he is an enlightened man, and there is no question of his trying to enlighten others.
I mean, as soon as I say I am enlightened, I've already come back.
The knowledge about enlightenment passed on to us from generations tells you that you are an enlightened man. You see? So then naturally you want to enlighten others. So it is a petty little experience which has become possible for me through the help of this thought. So what I experience and call an enlightenment is a thought-induced experience and not really an enlightenment at all.
You mean every description of enlightenment is essentially an illusion?
Why are we concerned about enlightenment at all?
Well, it seems like...
A way out.
Yeah, what else is there to do?
The way out, you see. So you are putting off the problem to a future date. What I am suggesting is that there are no problems at all.